Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio, everyone's favorite, always live, then always recorded and archived afterwards indie game, I guess, show. I'm Andrew, your host of Indiepocalypse Radio. I am searching emails. I am double checking to see if we have an absentee guest at the moment. And if you're looking at the screen, I bet you can guess which one it is because there is one here currently. But speaking of guests who are here currently, you may know our first and only guest. We'll find out soon from issue 31 of Indiepocalypse Radio with Particle Mace. It's Andy Wallace. Andy, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. I'm going
Well,
to
just us Andrews right now.
yes, just us Andrews. I do no, I'm 90%, 95 to 99% certain. Wait, am I getting a? Oh, I was like, yeah, who am I getting a typing from? Because I have both Discord and my email off to the side, staring at them. But somebody I think is messaging me unrelated. Okay, yes, that is an unrelated message. But hello, welcome to the show. It's Andrew's only night. We're having a time here. We are so. Andy, first question that I have to get out of the way because people are dying to know. It's so desperate. I think I forgot to ask it last episode, which is, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
How did I hear about Indiepocalypse?
That's
God, my
important. Here,
guess
this is
is
important market research on my part.
totally no. My guess is probably through Twitter. It's something that's been on my radar for a little while now. Um, I know mostly I think I started paying attention to it because the cover art is rad,
That's what I'm hoping.
and
That's
then
why I like it.
yeah, no, it's super cool. And also like the fact that you're actually paying devs is like
Very
exciting and cool.
yes.
Um,
Yeah, that is
so
devs. This is a great weekend for devs doing a lot of work for no pay.
I mean, isn't that every weekend?
Well, this is a
Uh,
special one.
yeah. So yeah, I honestly I don't remember exactly where I first heard about it. This is the first time I submitted anything to it. I don't know why, considering this game came out like 6 years ago.
Right.
But uh,
When you
but
submit, I'm like,
it just
I was like, do I own this game already? I checked
you
I did
probably
not.
do. It's Lord knows if you've bought any of the like itch like various social justice
Oh
bundles,
yes, well I own it
you
through those
definitely own a
channels.
copy of Particle Mace.
I own every game through those channels. But I was like, did I get this from a different bundle site 8 million years ago? Like
It's possible. I don't even remember
there
all the
was
spots it's been.
there was like
But
post Humble, there were a lot of like weird bundle sites that were coming around. I
yeah,
got
we were all chasing that dream, right? When like Humble was happening and like
yeah,
stuff would just like blow up because you got your game on Humble.
right, and then it was like what it got. Well, I mean, started off as just being like a who's who of indie games, which
Oh,
is
totally.
itself those were who's who because Microsoft was throwing a giant pile of weight behind them. So I think that's what people forget about. It's not that like there's less game or more games or whatever. It's that Microsoft doesn't spend a whole week or during summer to be like, you got to buy these 5 arcade games. It's like your game is one of 60 that were added to Game Pass that are released in a blog post. But
Yeah, totally.
but
But
yes,
yeah, it was good for a minute there. Not for
yeah.
me, I never got anything in, but for lots of folks.
No, I similarly have even the humble store I've submitted to multiple times, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we don't have the space," and I'm like, "What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's digital. There's infinite space there." They're like, "I'm so sorry, we do not have the resources to host your game." And it's like, you could delete it, old Assassin's Creed map pack or something, make space for me. But
Yeah, I
that's
haven't messed with that. I haven't messed with too many storefronts
yeah,
in a while, just kind of releasing mostly smaller things for free and or working on my current like weird, overly complex Discord game that absolutely can't be sold through any normal channels.
Right, right.
So, and then the good old itch. Like itch is great. I sell everything on itch.
Yeah, it's let you
I love
upload things
itch. I
for
know.
free.
Yeah, but it also I feel like it's a nice community. I like the people running itch, and I want to support them.
Right.
Versus basically every other game platform where it's not like I dislike them, but I think the folks running itch are like very actively doing the right thing, and I want to support that. And it's just like it's a good store. I don't know. I like itch. Buy stuff
Yeah,
on itch.
I realized recently that it was like I forget what I was searching, but I saw across a game that was selling their games using Big Cartel, and I was like, right, you can just use any kind of like digital goods storefront because games are just digital goods.
Yeah, you totally can. I sell physical goods on Big Cartel.
Yeah, you could sell games on Big Cartel as well.
Wow, no, maybe I will. No, I'm probably gonna stick with itch. But
Yeah,
that is interesting.
I'm trying to put it on my own as well, so I can get money not 60 days after somebody buys something. That's
I don't even care about that. It's fine. But
oh, I have a lot. I have a lot of money going outwards, so I like to have it coming inwards faster. But that is
this is
a
fair.
that's a very specific issue that I have. Also, like things like, oh, I wish you could split revenue on store pages, which is a an issue that I have very specifically. I don't think
Totally.
it's a specific a kind of general problem that people would have on itch making games by themselves. Also, because people don't buy that much stuff on itch, I don't think. I've
Yeah, I get some. It's certainly not my like biggest platform.
yeah
The most successful thing I have done on itch was basically a joke. I put up a bunch of animated GIFs and we're calling them non-NFTs. It's like it's not an NFT, but you can just buy an animated GIF if that'll make you happy.
yeah
And that's definitely the most successful project I have on itch.
right
People like spending money on that joke.
right if you get into the right if you make something in the right discourse cycle,
Yeah, exactly.
and you kind of chase it without the exploitation and the I mean, I trust that you burned down a couple trees at least just to stay in the spirit of things.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
No,
That
it
is
did. It did kind of cement to me that good jokes are valuable art.
yes. No, I talk a lot about on this show and general about that is to say the game called That Is to Say, based on the Plum poem,
Yeah, exactly.
and which is
I think if Particle Mace had come out a few years later, it probably would have done better on itch. I put it on itch while itch was very much a thing,
yeah
in like 2013, I think, but it wasn't nearly as big.
yeah
I have a feeling if it was like a brand new thing on itch today, it would probably have been bigger, bigger thing there. I mean, you can still buy it on itch,
right
but like I said, if you've bought any social justice bundle or done any of like itch's cool things, you definitely own a copy. If you're listening to
yes
this, I hope you bought the Indiepocalypse scene.
yeah
So
right that's it's a good thing to buy.
totally.
It's a
So
one of the few issues where it's you're saving money maybe because I don't know. Are you? I had someone say that once. They'd be like, "Oh, am I like? Why would I buy this when it's like the games are free?" And I'm like, "Well,
some of them are, not all of them, not all of
yeah,
them.
and but also
Actually, just
they shouldn't be free."
I know. That's so hard with indie games where it's just like, yeah, you don't want to undercut everyone else, but then, sometimes I make a game and I'm just like, well, all I want is for people to play it. So
Right.
I'll just put it out there.
Yeah, it's just very kind of complicated balancing act where it's like people should get paid for their work. A lot of very
Totally.
most like as a true Bandcamp sicko. Very rarely do I see pay what you want albums that are not like compilations.
Hmm.
It's mostly like any person's even singular EP. They're like, no, this is like $3 to $5. I worked on this thing.
Totally, which I mean, I think is it's a good way to do it. I find
Yeah.
the Bandcamp model so interesting too because 9 times out of 10 you can listen to the whole album
Right. Yeah.
for free. Like the like to buy it is $10, but you can just listen to it anyway.
Sometimes they get
And I
mad
think
at you
that
if you listen to it too many times.
I know the little pop-up
Yeah.
comes up that's like it's time to open your wallet, but like honestly, I almost always do.
Right. Yes.
Uh,
I've the last time that happened, I did. I was like, "I'm fine. You got me."
yeah, totally. I'm like the fact that I can listen to it for free really doesn't stop me from buying it, and I
Yeah.
think that yeah, that model's it's very interesting. I'm surprised it works, but I'm glad it does. I'm
Right.
assuming it works. It works
I
for me.
well, it does. I mean, it must work if you look. I mean, look at their front page. What are they sitting at right now? Yeah, 99 $94 million this
Yeah,
total and 188 this year. That's a lot of money to be paying to artists.
it rules.
I mean, you've got the. I love this ticker so much.
I know, yeah, I'm looking at it right now where there's all this stuff going by.
Right. It's just like here are people constantly buying stuff, and it's like a bunch of stuff I've never heard of
Oh,
course.
there's the Machine Girl album. I know that one. I wonder if we're seeing the exact same thing. I
We
always
are
wonder
because
how this
I
ticker.
did just see that as well.
Yeah, it's the only one I've recognized here. For the listeners at home, we are currently staring at the Bandcamp homepage.
Right. Just go home and while you're listening, stare at it yourself. And the one thing I worry about is if Itch had something like this, it would be a lot slower. It would be
Probably, yeah, but
the culture is very different in terms of like music purchasing and like indie music versus like indie games. Mostly,
yeah, I know we really screwed ourselves out of like convincing people that the things we make are worth money.
yeah, right. And I think right now, indie games are still like what you think of. Well, I think like 90% of
Oh,
people think of as
someone on
indie.
Bandcamp just sold an album for $200. Good for
I
them.
Yeah, see, I was not looking at the prices. I've looked occasionally at that that current 93 bundle that is like their whole discography for like $500. I'm like, I can't do that, even if it is like 50% off.
Yeah, but also like David Tibet puts out an album like every 2 weeks.
Right, exactly. So
You
that is
can't keep up with that.
no, but once you do get caught up, then you can keep up. You just have to. It's just that upright investment. That is.
Yeah, totally.
That is one of the things I use this show for. It's just like, what if I convinced people to listen to more current 93?
You
Because,
know, I tried a little bit. I got friends who are way into them. I see the appeal.
yeah.
I couldn't quite do it. It seemed like the kind of thing I would have been into. I was like, oh, it's like long and a little monotonous and kind of a downer and a little
Yeah.
unsettling. But I don't know. Maybe I just didn't listen to the correct album out of the like 200 on
Right.
offer.
Yes. There's a lot of places to try around with. It is, there's, no, I am someone who is, I appreciate, and there are things that I like that I recognize that like, no, nobody likes this but me. Or it's going to be very hard to find someone else who likes this that I know.
Yeah. I thought that one would be for me. Maybe I'll try again later.
I think Thunder Perfect Mind is very intro friendly, maybe, but I'm also like, so I think yeah, I had a conversation with a friend where it's like it's one of those things where you realize you are just so far up your own ass and you don't know what sunlight looks like anymore. Where you're like very very adamantly believing that Merryweather Post Pavilion is just a pop album, and I think it is just a pop
Okay, but
album.
it is though.
But then you realize what like pop music actually is, and then you're like, no, no, it isn't, but it
Yeah,
is.
there's a spectrum here. Listen, as like
Yeah,
a Frank Zappa fan, I feel you on this.
right. When I listen to Trout Mask Replica, I'm like, this is very normal. What are you talking about, people? But like, it is people's like intro to weird music.
Totally, totally.
But I'm like, this is played with instruments. That's very average. I'm quite the coward's way out, if you would say that about avant garde, even to play your music with instruments. But anyway, that's well beside the point. I do not think we are having I do not think we are being joined today unless it is a last minute entry. But anyway, so we danced around Particle Mace for a little while. What is
Yeah.
Particle Mace for people who don't know what it is?
Yeah, totally. So Particle Mace is a top-down shooter without the shooting. So it's a arcade game in the vein of, kind of asteroids, that sort of thing, where you fly a ship around, but instead of having a gun or anything, you have all these particles tethered behind you. And so you're trying to kind of swing your ship in circles and swing the particles around and smash stuff, and not die in the process. So it's
And
sort of
if you
asking you to fly carefully through
yes.
asteroids while also like circling wildly.
Right. Yes. Now I have to ask you, Eddie. In the 6 years since you released Particle Mace, have you had to describe before to a live audience, be it radio
Yeah, I
or in
mean, not
person?
not in a few years, but
I
yeah,
felt
no, for go ahead.
I felt the familiar patter of a con floor. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's a good reason for that. I definitely was, going to PAX and Indiecade and God, Gamescom back when that, not
Wow.
Gamescom,
We're going.
Gamer Camp. Sorry, Gamer Camp,
Okay.
up in Toronto.
Oh, I am.
Which
So
other ones?
I didn't know about
Magfest,
that.
bunch of them. Oh, that one ruled, but it also closed down. So
Okay. Yes. There's another one in Toronto that also rules. Called Comics X Games that I am hoping is coming back this year. The
that's the dream. I have not been on the conference circuit in a few years, but yeah, back in the day, all
now
over the place telling people about this game.
I was on a couple and then I was like, oh wait a minute, these are not for me. They're not the right venues for what I have. I am a man with no venue, which is a weird thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, the vibes at them are fun, but they always felt like, for the most part, places I really wouldn't be if I wasn't, hawking something, basically.
Yes, and I
What I will say is MagFest is probably the only like fan-facing convention that I truly, truly adore. And then other kind of more like industry-facing ones like Indiecade are also great. But in
yes
terms of fan stuff, like check out MagFest if you haven't.
I
It's a
I've
good
tried
time.
I've checked out Magfest for 3 years straight, and they say no thank you to Indiepocalypse.
Well,
I'm hoping I'm hoping again this year. I was like, listen, Magfest, I will cut this thing up in any way you want.
sure,
Whatever
sure.
whatever version of this thing works best for you. I will make a new compilation. I will make a compilation of just newly commissioned games. Whatever works for Magfest, I will work for you.
Gotcha. I just more meant that's the one where
Yeah.
alone I'm like actually on the floor interacting with stuff. I'm like, oh hell yeah, like this is a good time.
Yeah, yeah, I've kind of it's also I've realized that like I'm in this weird no man's zone of like industry shows. I don't think do me any good because I are they like I am not getting a job. I'm not getting
Yeah, totally.
I'm not getting a publishing deal with any platform holders. I'm kind of like I don't know, meeting indie people and hoping that they'll post about it online. That's a that's a
Yeah,
it's a weird thing to spend a lot of money to go to LA to do.
sure is. Yeah, yeah. The indie hustle is a weird one
But
for sure.
I am anticipating the kind of tailor made for me event is Comics X Games, and I'm hoping it's happening this year. I saw the group that runs it. Uh, Now this is like me going down a conspiratorial rabbit hole of well they retweeted that the TCAF applications this year because it takes place at the same time as TCAF within TCAF,
Mhm.
that being the Toronto Comics and Arts Festival.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, if they share it this year, maybe they're going this year this time. But there aren't any other indie game shows that take place in the middle of indie comic shows, which are the kind of ideal venue, I think, for myself.
Pretty specific overlap, but
Yes,
yeah.
yes, but it is like the audience that I think is hungry for like independent art that they're not familiar with.
Totally.
And I think like that is very rarely like the last video game show I went to that I realized that maybe video game shows are not for me. I was like, there are a lot of Mario Brothers T-shirts here, and maybe
Yeah.
there's a lot of children and grown adults wearing the same T-shirts. Maybe this is not the right venue for me.
I know what you mean. One of my like big indicators at these kind of things for me, if this is like an event for me, is actually the t-shirts.
Yes, that is.
Where I'm like, if we have a lot of like just two things shirts,
Yeah,
I'm like, well, it's cool. People are having fun. Like, there's no wrong way to do culture, but like, this may be a little bit less my vibe.
right, right. That is. I found it. I found it works both ways. Do I are the T-shirts just like box art from Mario? And do people recognize like my mannequin pussy T-shirts? And then I put the two together, and if neither is true, this is probably not the right venue for me.
Coincidentally, I saw them opening for Screaming Females like 6 months ago. They were fantastic.
What a show! What a what a show! I saw funeral. I saw Funeral Cone open for Screaming Females. We want to talk about going to Screaming Females shows. The Funeral Code is, I think, a local Providence band.
Brad.
They're cool. It was a weird venue though. Anyway, because listen,
But no, Mannequin Pussy's great.
yes, no, yeah, it's the song of the summer every summer. Uh, ex- Although sometimes I forget that the shirt has bad words on it.
Yeah.
so,
Well,
so I'm like, should I wear this to
it's a con.
Target?
Folks can handle it.
Right, right. People have seen worse at a Target, I'm sure. But yeah, so video games, huh? People play them sometimes, I guess. Do you play video games? The important question of any indie developer: do you play video games?
I do play video games.
Huh, weird.
No, for sure, I play video games. Yeah, I will say I have a tendency to just play the same games
Yeah,
for a few decades or so. I would say Spelunky, regular rotation, literally for like 15 years now.
right.
Magic the Gathering, still
Okay,
playing. XCOM 2 is like the new addition to the mix because I
right.
like started playing it in like 2015 or whatever, and we'll play like two campaigns a year. So I do play games. I tend to play the same ones over and over. My
Yeah,
partner and I did just play Outer Wilds and
okay.
the DLC for it, which are fantastic. Just like so good. Everyone who told me I should be playing that was right.
Is that the spaceship language one?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the other one that came around the same time with a very similar name? That's the RPG.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Because I also got them confused.
But I don't.
I don't remember 'cause I haven't played that one.
Right.
No, this is the like yeah, spaceship kind of like tiny galaxy puzzle game. It's very clever and good.
Yeah. Yeah. I've what's it called? Oh, what is? Oh, okay. Never mind. That's a different thing. There was late breaking news about a collective breaking up, but it was the Disco Elysium people, not the what's the name of that art museum thing that a bunch of developers do like every year or so? It begins with a Z.
Oh no.
I forget what it's called, but I thought that was them. I'm like Zom is or Zaum, however you pronounce
Mm.
that thing. I'm like, is that? But it's not that. It's something else. Anyway, that was a an unnecessary. Andrew looks at online sidebar as I saw the breaking news. I'm like, anyway, but no, I have a similar kind of habit of well, and now I cannot. Or it's harder, I should say, not cannot. It's harder for me to play kind of like the kind of games in Indiepocalypse, just kind of like on my spare time, without having like a oh, should I file this one out for later? Should I contact this person? Should I like without making it work in a way?
Sure. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I similarly have like my rotation is not dissimilar, except it's like an MMO and Magic the Gathering, and that's though I've been playing less Magic because my friends were like, "Let's play it in real life."
And that's
So,
that's also fun.
so
I mean, I play a lot of Magic just on the computer on
right,
Arena, but I have in the past, not so much since the pandemic, but I used to run this thing called Weird MTG,
okay,
where every few months I was holding like a strange in-person event. Usually it was involved me like printing up tons of cards. I made a whole system for like creating booster packs
okay,
because I wanted to like do an Arabian Nights draft,
yeah,
and I'm not gonna put down, like $6,000 or whatever for an
right.
Arabian Nights box. It's terrible draft format, by the way, like almost unplayable.
Oh,
But
that's the
it's
perfect the perfect
but it's
draft format.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then do you know Robo Rosewater?
Yeah, that's like the kind of is that the one that no, I was thinking Rosetta Water or whatever.
That's the one that's Google Translate. Robo
Right.
Rosewater is like a machine learning bot that just spits out new magic cards.
Yeah.
And back in like 2017, before before like Dali and all that was around, I made a machine learning thing to create art for the Robo Rosewater cards. So it was like trained on the existing set of magic card art, and then it would try to create new art for them. And so we use those to do a draft with Robo
Yeah.
Rosewater.
Yeah, and that
So it
is
was this whole extended project, but it was cool. And I gotta say, once you filter out the cards that just straight up don't work in the rules, it's a
right.
surprisingly playable draft environment.
Right. It's like especially if you're committed to playing like that, kind of already you're already deep in the magic hole, you know? So,
Yeah, totally, totally. I mean, listen, there's some weird stuff there. There's a card for 1 blue that just does 6 damage to
yeah.
any target. So it's just like a mega lightning bolt, but there's stuff to deal with it. I was surprised at how interactive the games were.
I think
Um,
that's the draw to me about Magic, and I think maybe why other developers are occasionally drawn. It's because it's like game design in just playing it. There's so much like
oh yeah, I mean, like I feel like every game developer loves Magic. I mean, that's overstating it. That's not
right,
entirely true, but the like percentage, I feel like it's that in Spelunky,
right.
where like the percentage of like game developers who like them is so high.
Yeah, because
Like
there's
every game developer I know adores Spelunky, and most random folks I run into have not never heard of Spelunky, which is
right.
a shame because it's a perfect video game.
Yeah, I am not a roguelike type necessarily. I like to go from start to finish sometimes, mostly because I have
That's
very limited
fair.
time. But I appreciate the design elements and how it all. I like games where all the rules apply to all the people, all the parts of them. You know.
Totally. Yeah, it's really consistent, which I mean, it's the same reason folks love like Dark Souls and all those kind of games.
Yeah, it's like so I saw someone online talking recently about like a wizardry game where it's like technically like all the in like a RPG it's like well the bosses are immune to instant death or whatever but no everything kind of works on everything so maybe the odds are very low but you can just kind of instant death a boss or the
I
final
mean,
one even
yeah, yeah.
and
I mean,
like
those kind of systems are really engaging.
right the ones that are just very open and it's the same kind of same reason I love like well sometimes when I draft I will pick a card art that I like and then I'll see if I can't make this card work. I usually just go with cards that I like conceptually or I think they look cool and then I'll like see can I make a deck out of this that is like viable. And a lot of
Okay,
times
yeah, I mean, I love that. One of my favorite things about that game too is just there's so many cards that
right.
like one of the things I did a lot with the Weird MTG events was basically make pools that were less good. Like I had a cube that was all it was only rares and they all had to be worth less than 20 cents, I think was the cutoff.
Okay. So real
Um,
beauties.
yeah, yeah. So it was all crap rares.
Yeah.
But it was somewhat curious. It was like color balance, and I didn't, have things that were like truly no, there was no situation where it was useful. But they made for really interesting games because there were all these cards that most people had never played with,
Right.
and the power level is not all wrong if that's the only thing in the cube.
Right. Because you'll get like a creature like it's a rare, but it's like I'm a 6/6 for 7, and I'm a rare. I don't do
Yeah, or
anything.
even yeah, the better ones were things where like
Yeah.
they just had like some weird effect that's not very good, but
Yes.
like it does something.
Right.
Uh
I've spent a lot. I spent some good time trying to make cards that have terrible effects work because I thought they were very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, exactly. The other fun restriction about rares only and only rares that like no one wants is a lot of the basic building blocks are just not present. Like spot
Yeah.
removal doesn't exist.
Right. There.
Like I remember Volley of Boulders was kind of premium because for like 5 mana you could do like 6 damage to something.
Yeah. There's no like you don't have most counter spells or just kind of any kind of like kind of like rapid what's the word I'm looking for interaction that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, exactly. My bad. I just looked it up, and Volley of Boulders is 9 mana to do 6 damage to something.
hey when you don't
Hey,
have, when you have 0 lightning bolts.
hey, but it flashes back for 6, so
Hey, that's
sure hope the folks listening play Magic the Gathering, because otherwise it's just like 10 minutes of dead air.
no, it's 10 minutes of like slowly getting yourself kind of like, maybe I should have. What is Arabian Nights? What is Charizard? What is
Hey, check
all?
it out. There's some cool stuff. And when you're just doing like dumb one-off events with your friends, you can just print the stuff.
Right. They're just the cart. They're just paper. You can just print your own paper. It's the
Yeah,
secret
I
of
mean, there's like play games at your local game store.
yeah.
Obviously, like that stuff is super fun. Use the real stuff. But if you're just doing like a weird one-off event with your friends that would otherwise cost $10,000,
Yes. Yeah. Right.
consider it.
Right. Listen, you could anyone can take a island that's just lying around and write Black Lotus on it. No one's stopping you. Wizards is gonna kick down your door and tell you no, that's an island, not a Black Lotus. So you could just like
Yeah, just go for it. And then, like I said, obligatory, do support your local game store.
yes.
They're
No.
actually like really cool.
I've had multiples spring up and shut down around me.
I don't really understand how any of them manage to stay open, but
Funko
I always
Pops, I
make sure
think.
to buy stuff. Hey, if Funko Pops are what's keeping game stores around,
Yeah. I think Funko Pops are what keep geek stores in business.
huh,
That's just my assumption.
you might be right. It's an interesting ecosystem. I never considered how everything has its role.
Or I guess some or like ebbs and flows of things becoming popular.
Yeah, totally.
Like the local Newberry Comics, which I once again I always think like, oh, that's the people's comic shop, but it's not. It's just it's local. There's just like a million. There's just one in every town, but that has like wall to wall Funkos, and then sometimes it'll have, here's our K-pop shelf, or like, here's our horror manga shelf when Junji Ito becomes cool, or whatever anime becomes cool.
I mean, did he ever stop being cool? I feel like
No, well, he became cool.
gotcha.
He was like, I remember the like a couple of his stories floated around the internet for like a long time. Mostly the Fault one was like,
Yeah,
that's like classic internet scary story, but I felt like it was like almost a decade before like that crossed over into people actually like publishing his books again.
interesting.
And like
I'm not super up on my manga, so
oh, they publish everything. They like they're scrambling to publish. I feel like every single work that he does. I am up on my comic books a lot, or not like superhero stuff or like shonen manga, but other
yeah,
it,
yeah.
the comics. A guy who runs an indie alternative game zine would probably get into. I'm in the middle of Birds of Maine right now, but
Cool. I don't know that one at all.
Michael DeForge. That's the beauty of I think art, and like not everyone can know everything, and I think that's what games are getting closer to, because right now it still feels like everybody has to know everything, or people act like they have to know everything.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. There's so many like indie games, and then I
Right.
find, especially once I get into like subgenres, like I'll be hanging out with folks who are into like indie tabletop stuff, like
Yeah.
like one-off RPGs. I'm like, oh, I know a few of them, and I like playing those games, although I don't play them as often as I would like to. But just being like reminded that there's like, oh, this like huge, vibrant community of like games that, by the standards they're looking for, are very successful.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, I've never heard of this.
Yes. Yeah, that's why I kind of I have I don't know if I wrote this down on my submission thing. I think I probably ought to eventually. I kind of soft limit tabletop games at 2 per issue because I feel like they are a little better off in terms of like that hyper indie space in terms of like publishing and supporting one another and the medium than games are, or video games are, that is,
Sure.
which is kind of like a, it's like a, with the to see the Bandcamp equivalent, which is like that kind of indie. Most indie games are still like indie music. Why are your parents' names blue on Wikipedia? Indie,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Like, why does your LinkedIn profile say EA executive producer, Mr. Indie Man? It's a lot of
What
coming
you
from
get for
a,
having a LinkedIn.
right. Why do you have a LinkedIn, Mr. Indie Man? But the idea of it's a lot of, well, they're coming from places of comfort and connections within the industry.
Totally.
Like is it's good as good as their games are. Like it's hard to pretend that Supergiant didn't have like a massive head start.
Yeah, yeah. Which, no, I mean, I think it's fun. When I was sort of more in the like active,
Yeah.
beat of the indie game stuff, um, I remember I'd run into, well, first of all, even while I was doing it, I also had like a lot of advantages. Like my folks
Right.
like paid for me to go to school. I didn't have
Yes.
debt, which is like massive,
Right.
massive. And then
Even
like,
my, and I am slightly less in that I started Indiepocalypse because I had to pay off school myself, but I still did pay it off eventually.
yeah, totally. But I would run into folks who would be like, "Oh, this is our first game, and we like quit our jobs to do it." And I'm just like, "Oh no, oh
Right.
no!" Like
Right.
I was in a pretty good spot, and I was like, "I'm not quitting my job. Are you kidding?"
That's
And then just like hearing people that had like sunk their life savings into their first game project, I
yeah.
was just like, "Oh God, like we need a time machine to fix this."
Right. That's the thing that always makes you weird. It's like, well, how do you, if you quit your job, how do you survive after 3 weeks? What is?
Right. Well, and I think a lot of these were folks who like had reasonably good jobs or
Yes.
other
Yeah.
things, and then like kind of bought into, yeah, I mean there's that like crappy myth of the like independent artist where
Right.
it's just like,
Right.
oh, you just make it work, and it's always like, well, you make it work because stuff's already working, like stuff's already
Right. Right.
working real good and then you're able to make it work.
Yeah. We need to talk a
For
little bit.
most folks.
We need to
Yeah.
talk a little bit. I think people need to be more like public about where like indie developers come from, because I think it does poison a lot of people who are not maybe coming from like a. I'm a former lead designer at Blizzard with a giant war chest and a bunch of industry connections.
Totally, totally.
And they think so, and they can't. They're just like I'm Zip Jump Games. And then someone out of
Well,
college who's like lower middle class is like, I could do that.
yeah, totally, and it's like, oh God, you're
Right, right. They
this mistake.
they bury themselves in debt, and then they're like, why isn't anyone talking to me like they're talking to these developers? And it's like,
Totally.
is your story designer the former editor in chief for GameSpot? Because that helps a lot.
Sure does.
I think that's the benefit of. I think that's one of those unspoken benefits of PR and community people. The hiring pool being Games Press, because all those people have an instant like foot in the door for to cover your games.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like, well, I'm going to hire this. It's good that people get jobs. Also, it's so it's I respect
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the game press to PR pipeline, because the game press to livable life pipeline is
Yes. A
not
rough
quite
one.
so existent. So, but it is like it's a very savvy move on game companies, because it's like they're already friends. They already have a lot of colleagues in game press still who will answer their PR emails.
Good thing to have.
Yeah, yeah, it's a important thing to recognize, the kind of interconnectedness of it all. But I only realized recently that, in talking about, you're saying dunking your entire life savings into a trendy game, that by the time your game released, the trend has faded and it has gone away. And hopefully people will still care about deck building roguelikes when you finish your game 4 years later.
Oh my God, I was working on a deck building roguelike for years. And God, I must have started it like 4 or 5 years ago, and it never really came together. There were parts of it I really loved,
Right.
and I just never got it to a spot where
Yeah, I saw a mild discussion about game jams because Ludum Dare is going on, like how, well, maybe they're culturally bad sometimes, but I think like people got to learn to just, you can do things and then not finish them, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, the game jams rule.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I got
I think
nothing
the
bad to say about game jams.
I think the increasingly like competitive part of it is a little like weird,
Oh
because
no, that's awful.
right, because
Uh,
it pushes people to crunch, because like if you become top 10 in Ludum Dare, maybe people will play your games and look at them and that kind of thing.
yeah, no, that's no good. But also like it's also just a bummer because game jams are such like a wonderful opportunity to fail
Right.
spectacularly.
Yes, yes, it's it's space for, you might say, jamming.
Yeah, totally. When I taught game design for many years. I was a professor at Long Island University, and we started hosting a global game jam site on campus. And I basically just stay there for 72 hours. I like got a dorm room. The school let
Yeah.
me stay. Um, and it was great because, a lot of my students were just kind of starting and they felt like they were doing like homework assignments, but they didn't feel like they had like whole games under their belt.
Yeah.
And over the course of the weekend, they'd make a thing that like felt finished. That was like an early portfolio piece, or it didn't work at all, but it was okay
Right.
because they weren't getting a grade on it.
Yeah, and it's fine, because the benefit of programming and game development is some of it probably did work. You can just copy and paste it to your next thing.
Totally, but it was always really clear. I would just pressure the students really hard to go and be like, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
And it was always obvious who didn't, because like the next semester, the students who did Global Game Jam would inevitably just like be way more confident and just be doing better work because they
Right.
had something under their belt where they were like they could point to and be like, yeah, I made a game. Like, how cool is that?
Right. They know
So,
what a finished game feels like.
right, right. Uh, so yeah, no, lot of love for game jams, but yeah,
Yeah.
no love for grading game jams or picking winners.
Yes, that's the thing that irks me. Now it feels like sometimes people are like, more recently I've seen people trying to succeed in creating a game jam, Like that itself is almost like
Good
another
luck. There's like
layer.
more game jams than there are indie games coming out.
Right, right, exactly. So I've seen people like, oh, so nobody joined my game jam. Maybe I'll do better next time. Like, what do you mean? Who cares? It's a game jam. If
Yeah,
if
totally.
if
So
no one
what you're
joins,
saying is we need to have a game jam for creating game jams.
right, exactly. The game jam. So you like, and then we judge it on who made the best game jam.
I'm
Uh,
on the itch jam page right now,
yeah.
and like just today, it seems like there's probably about 60 active jams.
Yeah, that's a lot of a lot of. I once had an idea for a board game that was a game jam at the same time. Like it was it had a bunch of just like moving parts and stuff. It was somewhere between. Have you ever played? I think it's called Flux.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between like a Flux, but with like elements from like Euro games and other kind of war games and different kind of money currency games and that kind of thing. And it's just like weirdly developing a game as you play, and then you play a full game. because I think there's fun to creating like together.
Certainly, yeah.
I the last global game jam I did, the game was terrible. It was unplayable,
As it
and
should be.
there was like 11 people on the team.
Ooh, that's a
They
big
were
game jam team.
they were in two separate locations. I was a producer basically, and then
It's a lot of folks to wrangle in that time
yes,
period.
and then in my downtime, I recreated the functional original pitch of the game in Game Maker in like an hour. And then I was like, anyway, it's. Someone tried to cook a Lunchable with their laptop fan by overheating it, and it didn't work. And that's how I think of how Game Jam should be.
Yeah, yeah, there should be a strong element of chaos. They always feel like a little bit like a LAN party,
Yeah.
like that similar kind of like delirium.
Right, right. Where you reach the point where you kind of like think maybe you'll finish the game, but then you reach a point where like I'll never finish it. But then you're still kind of exhausted, and you're high off your lukewarm Lunchables, and you're like, maybe we could finish. Maybe
Good
we
day
could,
old coffee.
right. Maybe we could finish this game. You can't, but
No,
but
you just rescope. You just rescope. The
right.
the
Just
second and third levels, they're gone.
right. First level, that's also gone. What if we just had a title screen and a character that did something? Maybe I don't know. Characters doing something is also quite a stretch. I've I've got into this idea of sketching for game design, and it both works in my schedule and it's kind of like the most freeing thing I've done recently. Where it's like there's like no game there, but there's something technically playable, but it only took
Sure.
me like a few hours. But I have like code I can use going forwards, and I have like I got a little better at this and that. It's like literally what's the point of sketching is.
Sure. I feel like the only game jams I've done recently have all been Pico 8, like super, super limited character set jams,
Right.
which I like for similar reasons. I mean, it takes, once you get into the real like demo scene side of it, you can spend a whole lot of time trying to save 30 characters.
Yes, I've seen people do
But
some very very ambitious Pico 8 stuff.
yeah, yeah, I've done a few of, well, I just finished the Pico 1K jam, so source code fits in a kilobyte.
Yeah.
And I've done a few like tweet jams where it's just like you get two tweets worth of characters,
Yeah, that,
and they're a lot of fun. So
right.
560. But
This kind of like the extreme limitations of design.
yeah, yeah, you can. I'm actually quite happy with the Pico 1K jam I made. It's a not dissimilar from Particle Base, honestly. It's a space game about trying not to die.
See, now there's double disappointment because the our second guest that was going to be on the show had submitted. I think actually no, the second. I was going to say the first actually, but it wasn't. There was like a few so far. Submitted a game that was made in Pico 8.
Pico 8 is fantastic. I like that system a lot.
Yeah, I am. I think the scene for game design is going to change like very drastically within like these coming years because of things like Pico 8
Hmm.
and Bitsy and people going, oh, you can still use RPG Maker 2003. It's fine. And other kinds of like
Totally.
very low intensive engines.
Yeah, and I feel like Pico 8 it just hits this really nice sweet spot of limitations where you just can't make a 4 year long project in it.
Right.
Like you can't. It's
Right.
not possible. You can make a really cool game. Like it's not so limited that you feel like you can't do things, but it
Yeah.
really kind of forces you to just like make the thing and then be done with it.
Right. It's like the philosophy is kind of like zine making. It's like you can't make a 500-page zine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think at least of things I've messed with, it really hits the sweet spot where I feel like I have the authorial control to do something that I think is really cool, without having the limitless ability to just be like, I can just keep working on it.
Right, right. I like what if I just like you can just keep making that Unity project bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I have.
Yeah, it's a terrifying road to go down. That's my disinterest in doing such a thing is why I started this whole endeavor to begin with. It's because I did not want to make long games, but also, now here's the tricky part. I also wanted to make money, and I felt the two were incompatible.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, you don't make money making big games either.
Right, right. It's true, but people don't look at you weird when you charge money for them in the way they would if you charge money for like a half hour game.
Yeah, or like a 10-minute EP.
Yes, exactly. And I'll buy a 10-minute EP.
I will
Every
absolutely buy a 10-minute EP.
I think I bought like a 5-minute EP. That was the last thing I bought when Bandcamp yelled at me to buy music was an EP, and it was like a
I
punk
think,
EP.
yeah, Girls Living Outside of Society, shit, Gloss.
Yes.
They have a few EPs, and I think like the longest one is maybe like 7 minutes.
What?
But
Right.
they're great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Demo and Trans Day of Revenge. They're both fantastic, and they're like 5 minutes and 7 minutes.
Right. Let me see this. Can I? 10. Oh, sorry. 10 minutes. This demo was 10 minutes long. My mistake. A very long demo
Yeah,
for
yeah.
for a punk album for a punk demo.
It's like what, like 30 songs or something?
Yeah. No. No. That's seven or something.
Oh, wow.
That was Oops. The band called Oops. I believe they're a Japanese punk band. They've got
Damn.
one song that's two songs that are over 2 minutes. And that's unnecessary. It's self-indulgent. But yeah, I kind of uh, it games were born into an era after punk rock had kind of been very sold out, and
Hmm.
and kind of you're available at your local Hot Topic at a reasonable price in fast fashion, but I think the ethos can still survive, and I think I want to see it thrive a little more because it feels. How do I say this politely to all the game developers out there? Game development is the least punk rock medium in existence. It is.
I mean, it can be. I feel like I started being a lot more satisfied with
Yeah.
my own kind of game development stuff when I was less trying to sell stuff on Steam, which was never paying the bills anyway, and
Yes.
more sort of focused on especially like in-person events. Like I know we're both part of the Baby Castles Discord, and like going to Baby Castles events in like 2012, 2011 back then
Yeah.
was like, oh, right. Of course, like this kind of stuff doesn't exist on Steam because
Right.
it
Right.
can't. It exists in like a basement.
Yes. Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
um, and not too long after that, I started. Well, I guess I co-founded Death by Audio Arcade. And so, we're still kicking. We make new arcade games basically. And like Particle Mace has an arcade machine that kind
Yeah.
of just bounced around venues in New York before Wonderville opened. And that was like, it was so cool seeing people play this game in person and getting hype for the game in person, or in a few cases, like having a band come on stage late because their drummer is playing Particle Mace.
Yeah.
Uh, and like that kind of stuff felt like the sort of artistic and social experiences that I wanted, and it's just not going to happen on Steam.
Right. Right.
Like it can't. And so I think games totally can do that. It's just not going to do it if if all you're trying to do is sell games online. Like I
Yeah.
want more game developers to just like make a game for your friend's party.
Right.
Like it's a good time. It's rad to see people get like excited and play your stuff in person.
Yeah. That
And like
is.
no amount of like streamers will do that.
No. No. Also, I mean, streamers have to obey their own kind of economy, where they have
Yeah,
to.
I mean when it's rad. It's just it's a different thing.
Right. Right. Because they have to play things that people also want to see, and who wants to see that weird game you made for your friends, unless they do, but very often that's not the case. It's a kind of a
Yeah, I just mean I've had streamers play Particle Mace,
yeah,
And it's super cool. I don't mean to be like, oh, like streamers are just doing it for the clicks or whatever. That's not it at all. Like
No,
it's
no,
really
of course
rewarding
not.
for me as a developer to see streamers play my stuff and like explore it and play it well and see the comments on it. And it's also just really different seeing like a bunch of folks who've never seen the game before and who are like a little drunk at a show being
Yeah.
like, what's this thing? And like getting into it and being like calling a friend over because they got to try it. Like it's just a different and really rewarding experience.
Yeah, there's it's one we could not do for a very long time, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
this is a very weird time to be talking about. But people listen. Someone could listen for 5 years from now and then be like, "Oh yes,
well,
they'll
I will say most of the Death by Audio arcade collection is at Wonderville in
right."
Brooklyn right now. So if y'all want to play some one of a kind arcade games,
Yes, that's
check it out.
yeah. There are other like kind of. There's one. I don't know. There. I think the group is Pixels and Potions that were setting up like trying to set up like pop up like or like a rotating like indie game arcade kind of thing as well. He's kind of
Totally,
like
yeah. There's more of them coming up. I know like the Lux Flux has some interesting stuff going on. There's like the Sea Cave in New Orleans has a lot of really cool stuff.
yeah. There's
I mean, I'm forgetting like tons of people.
right. There's always a
But
million people that you can forget. It's because there's too many people.
yeah, and then as always, shout out to Baby Cathles. At least for
Yeah.
me, that was kind of the OG entrance to that scene.
Right. Right. I have a weird relationship where my entrance to like my closest um, scene that I connect with is the one in Toronto, which I do not live in Toronto. But it's like one of those things where it's like I my local scene is fine, but it and I are just on two different wavelengths for the most part.
Mhm.
Just like different styles and approaches to development, and like largely speaking, of course, groups are collections of people, and different people have different tastes. Any scene is not a monolith.
Of course, and then things change over time too.
Right? People go
Been
in and
doing
out.
this for like a long, for me at least a long time now, like 15 years or so
Yeah.
of like making things in various forms, and yeah, stuff
Right.
changes. I don't use Flash anymore, although I wish I could.
I don't think anyone uses Flash anymore, really.
No, you're not allowed to, but it's a real shame.
One of the games was made in one of the Koosh games, the like collaborative things I did with the comic imprint rather is not the right word, publisher was a nope, that's not it. I got an email. I was like, "Is that it?" But no, it is a different thing. But it was made in Click Team Fusion. The game is.
Oh,
But
that's exciting.
that was also the Catamite special, which is some of the old guard like to use their weird engines.
Was Catamites doing stuff in Click Team Fusion?
At least that game was in Click Team Fusion.
Wild. Oh, that's cool. I always
Yeah,
like hearing, yeah,
yeah.
hearing stuff like that. I mean, Particle Maze actually is like sort of an interesting one. That's done in open frameworks,
Is that
which is yeah, yeah.
wait, wait?
Open frameworks is like it's a creative coding library for C++.
Okay,
And there's a handful of games for it, but not much. It's like me and Zach Gage, kind of the only ones using it. Zach Gage to quite a bit more
you're right,
financial success than me, I think.
right.
But
But listen, if we
but
judge ourselves by financial success, we'd all be.
but yeah, you won't find many games done in open frameworks, but I do like it.
But if you want a little pick me up, I'll let you know. I was looking. Issue 31, currently, I believe, the top selling issue of Indiepocalypse.
Is that true? All right.
Yeah, yeah, it is number one. It
Yeah,
squeaked
I mean,
out.
there's some cool stuff in here.
I I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of it is that commissioned game. People are into. Listen, the horny furries came out in force, like they are wont to do.
Yeah, I mean they represent.
They And that is, I see. I never knew what kind of games I was going to get. I was like, oh, I did not realize. Sometimes I know when a commission game is going to really drive the people in, and that one did the work. But
I
I've
mean,
also
listen, if you want a community that is like ready to like pay money for art and make sure that it happens, like you
yes,
can't beat furries.
no greater respecter of arts than the furry community.
For real though, I mean, they keep a really vibrant community happening because they're willing to like put some money in.
Yeah, it's a thing I think that you don't think about it until you realize it, and then it kind of like you see it everywhere. You're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
like
You have Electric Zine Maker in this one, which I feel like is a really solid
oh,
get.
that's actually in all of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very early on, at like issue 4 or something. I
Interesting.
contact Natalie and is like, I make this zine thing. Do you mind if I include Electric Zine Maker so
I
that
mean, it fits.
people might make their own zines and submit them? And that is
Has it?
people have, yeah.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Sometimes I think I have a couple in the queue, but I before I got a new job recently, I was like, let's not go overboard with adding a bunch of bonus stuff to the zine. Let's save that $60 a month or something, Let's
Makes sense.
it's not touch and go, but it's also not full steam ahead all the time. I do not have a publisher backed money.
Yeah, I didn't really think so. I
I
mean,
kind of
that's part of what makes this collection cool,
yeah.
right?
No, I was talking to I use a lot. I mentioned it a lot. The how when POW Comics announced that they were quitting, they were like, "This never paid our salary," and they were like forefront of like the small press scene for like 10 years.
Yeah. It's
It's the kind of like the nature of small press. It's
totally. I mean, I don't pay rent from indie games.
no, I
A freelancer. I've always had something else
right.
going on.
Yeah, that is. I think that's what I realized recently talking to a small press. I was talking to someone. There's a punk flea market that happens in Boston like every other month or so, which is one of the better venues, honestly, for me. Uh, in terms of like selling things, that is also a very different mentality you get into going to game conventions when you are actively there to sell something, rather than to sell people on the idea of a game that they can buy at some point in the future.
Totally.
But I was talking to someone who, like the founder of a lit small press called Sword and Kettle, and they were like, "Yeah, I just kind of started it because I could start it, and then there's no reason I couldn't start it, but it doesn't pay the bills, and because it's hard to pay the bills, but." It's the benefit of like I think having these things exist and having them be more open, is a nice thing because not people submitting to lit magazines are not like I got into this month's issue of like Weird Adventures and now I don't have to work for the rest of the year. It's like no,
Yeah,
you're
totally.
gonna submit stories to like 5 to 6 to 7 to 20 different magazines over the course of a year, and it all kind of adds up here and there.
I mean, that's the hope.
And that's kind of like what I'm realizing more with this whole thing, which like of course it's not covering Indiepocalypse doesn't cover anyone's salary, but hopefully it
No, but it's nice, and it
yeah.
is honestly surprisingly rare in games.
Right, that people get
Um,
paid.
yeah, exactly.
Yes, that
And you're correct. The amount I'm getting from it is not like paying rent, but it is money,
right.
and it is nice to get.
Yeah, for especially it's like if something's like when did you say you made Particle Mace like 6 years ago?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is an old one,
Right, it's like
and
it's a
I
good
can
way
tell
to
partially because every single month. So it's the first. So every month I get an email from Steam telling me that my game hasn't made enough money for it to be worth it to them to send me any money.
Right.
And I'm like, you didn't need to email me.
I see. The Indie Apocalypse promises I will never email you when I don't have enough money to send you. I will only email you when I have enough money to send you.
Yeah, then it's a nice surprise, you know?
Right. People randomly get a PayPal thing that just says Indie Apocalypse, and it'll be for
Right,
like
but I think all
$7.
jokes aside, I think it's important to value this kind of work.
Right.
And so as a creator, like it's not great to just be in the habit of just like doing everything for free. I mean, like if you really believe in something and you like want the outcome from it, like hell yeah, do stuff for free. But in terms of just like being included in things, even getting like a small amount of money is like, yeah, right. I put work into this thing. It took a lot of effort to make this. I think it is a good piece of media. Like it is worth a little money.
Yeah, I've said before. A non-zero number of people have made the most money they've ever made off of games through Indie Apocalypse. I've never
I mean,
done.
that's really cool and also like kind of a bummer,
Yes,
but
it's just one of those things where it's like that's awesome, but also very bleak because it's like the Indie Apocalypse payout is somewhere between $40 and $60 on average, like
yeah.
overall, and that is like that's not a lot of money, but
But it
it's
is money.
right, right, and having money is nice. As someone who occasionally has money, when you have it, it's very nice. When I got it, when I worked 4 days of the job and made more money than I made working 5 days, I was like, "What? what? What a world!" To make
Yeah,
more money, just a little bit more.
it
It
was
changes
it,
everything.
it was very strange releasing iPhone games. I'm like dating myself a bit here.
Yeah.
Making iPhone games like right after like Angry Birds, I guess.
No, I was looking at your page and I saw a very iPhone game art piece of iPhone game art.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, I was at the studio Golden Ruby Games. I was the lead game designer and programmer there. Yeah, we're making little iPhone games. Honestly, the games we made, I think they were fun. They were like cool games. I'm proud of the work I did there, and it was so bleak to like be in a deli and be like, "Oh, that muffin is worth more than my game." Being like, they're
Right.
charging $1.50 for that muffin, and we're charging 99 cents for this game. And that was back when you could still charge 99 cents for a game.
Right.
Like now, if you're charging, like you can just have to do nothing.
Right. You have to
Um,
have more timers so that people can pay money to get rid of said timers.
You're right, right. But it was just like, oh, it's just such a bummer being like, I can't believe we're saying this is worth 99 cents. That's its
Right.
like initial price.
Yeah, yeah, that's its ceiling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never going to get higher than 99 cents. Yeah, it's well in the future you won't actually be paying anything for video games either because they'll all be for free I say with intense quotation marks on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So
Well,
then you can't charge anything for your games.
well, that's why it's important to make games for your friends' parties.
Exactly.
Just play
Exactly.
them there.
And really, the truth is, like Game Pass is not going to kill games in the same way nothing else is going to kill
Nah, no,
games.
nothing's gonna do that.
Right, right. The thing is that like I said this before Indie Apocalypse even started. I say there's like games are still they still feel like a singular a singular cultural blob, and I think like the niche is starting to like break apart from that blob more and more each year to become kind of like its own thing, like it is in most mediums.
Totally.
The kind of like alternative space of people who are like, I don't know who any of these Grammy people are, but I listen to 10,000 bands a year.
It's I think it's already got some pretty major splinters in that
Yeah.
way,
Yes. Yeah.
which is good.
There's a lot of like collectives popping up more and more recently. There's like being more international stuff is getting recognition. Maybe some in like the smaller space. I think they're getting more attention.
Yeah.
But because I think like you forget how much like I am Indie Apocalypse big in South America, or like
Huh.
I get a lot of South American developers. because there's a lot of
That's
people that are making
cool.
games.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's like there's a lot of people all over the world, and it's kind of like, anyway. No need to wax philosophical about indie games forever. I think they are cool, and I think if you happen to live in the one or two cities like New York that have cool spaces in them, you should try to attend them.
I mean, I feel like that too, though, is like every reasonably large city has at least some indie game scene.
It does, it does.
Like it
I'm
used to be, a handful of them, but I think you can find it kind of anywhere.
Yeah, I think there's somebody right now who's kind of like working on a project to catalog all those and put like a showcase for them on or something, maybe.
Good
Um,
luck. I mean, by the time you finish it, it will have like changed completely.
right, right. I wonder if it's like no, I'm hosting a video. I'm trying to make a because I made a showcase. I'm like, oh, anyone can just make showcases, you know.
Sure.
So I was trying to make one for different local scenes.
But yeah, I mean, when I was kind of more involved with running the indie arcade at MagFest, like one year we just got like all these games from the Pittsburgh, I think it's Pittsburgh Game Mechanics.
That sounds
Um,
right.
yeah, but like, nope. Turns out there's just a super vibrant arcade, like specifically indie arcade scene in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And it was like I was unaware of that.
Yeah, and that's I think
Like, but there it is now. I mean, they're still going strong. That was like 44 or 5 years ago.
yeah, that was part of my my what's the word I'm looking for? My thing that caused me to start doing it. There's the word for that. I forget what that word was in the moment. But like my initial thrust to create like a video showcase about local scenes is like stuff like that, and being like, Bandcamp being like, let's check out here's the Bolivian goth metal scene. And I'm like, yeah, because local scenes encourage each other and they create certain flavors. So
Totally.
that clearly should exist in games as well. And I'm hoping it'll shine through and people will be like, yeah,
Yeah,
I,
we don't do live shows. I feel like you get those kind of like micro communities in music because like you go to people's shows.
yeah,
We don't do that with games. Not enough. We do it a little bit. We should do it
right,
more.
right. I was thinking about like, can you do indie nights at barcades, Because it's kind of like already the right kind of venue. And like, can you,
Totally. I mean, yeah, you can do stuff. I mean, that's a lot of what I love about the stuff I do with Death by Audio Arcade is we do like bring games to places and do events and often show new things. We have like a projector or whatever set up, and like it's cool to have the vibe of the like that local show.
right.
Uh, you can do it in barcades a little bit. I think one thing you run into a lot in barcades is the folks who are going to barcades more often than not want to play Dig Dug and Pac-Man, which is
Yes.
like legit. That's what I would go to a barcade for too. And so I think a lot of times like people just aren't in the mindset to be like, I want to check out new things. They're like, I am going here for nostalgia.
Right. Right. My hope was like, well, at least they're playing video games.
Yeah. I've had trouble showing like indie games in those kind of spaces.
Okay.
I can actually tell you because it makes a good story for radio of the worst game demo experience of my life, which is there was like it was like a local multiplayer meetup, God, years ago, like I don't know, 6 years ago, and I was trying to show this game Worm Run. And the meetup didn't usually do indie games, so I knew someone who ran it, and I had like a local multiplayer version of this game. And someone had just turned on Smash Bros. And everyone was psyched to play Smash Bros. And then the person running it was like, no, no, wait. Instead of playing Smash Bros., we're going to play this game you've never heard of. And they couldn't get the AV stuff right, so the Smash Bros. Music was just playing. And there was just like all these people like angrily playing my game to just like get through it while
Yeah.
constantly being reminded about the game they wanted to be playing because the music is still going.
What a
Uh, and it was a bad show.
yeah, that is. I can't imagine it going. I guess it could have gone slightly worse. See, they could have like had technical times problems that went so long they never got to play Smash.
Totally. I mean, everyone was reasonably polite. They weren't like throwing tomatoes at me or anything,
Yeah.
but like it was so obvious that like everyone hated the stupid game I was trying to show them.
Yes, right, because they're not there to check out your like weird little
Yeah,
indie
totally.
game. They want to play the Smash Brothers, you know?
Which, like, I get it's a very good game.
Yeah, I've it's a great game to sit around and play with friends. But also, there was like someone I knew recently went to a concert, and they're like trying to check out who the opener was because like, oh, what if I just show up and I'll just go to the person I want to see? I'm like, the point of the opener is you want to see the opener because you don't know who they are.
No, I love seeing openers.
Yeah,
It's great. Yeah, a lot of times they're great, and then even if they're not, I actually like often find that time period in shows is like a really nice time to like kind of percolate on projects, like in my
yeah,
head. I find it's like a good time to just sort of sit with my thoughts.
right. If you're like, no,
Which
this
like isn't
is,
the vibe of a concert, but
I guess it depends on what kind of concert you're going to.
just
If
about any. Like this happens to me a lot at metal shows, so
okay,
it's not like just about the type of music. Um,
right. Well, then perfect. Then it doesn't matter because that is a ideal show to go to. As long
yeah,
as
but
you
I,
can
no,
like
I,
just kind of like never mind. But yeah, I thought a lot about like how to create opening acts for games, you know, or like kind of like other ways to have people support each other.
So, we were doing it more pre-pandemic, but when we would bring the arcade machines to places, so, we'd bring a collection of arcade machines to a venue that like doesn't usually do arcade stuff. Like we brought them to like elsewhere in New York or like Hollow in New York. It's almost all in
Yeah,
New York. And a lot of times what we would do is if they were going to be there for a while, we'd have an opening party. And part of that opening party almost inevitably would be we'd have a few screens set up. So it's like, okay, it's not an arcade machine, it's just like a screen, and local devs would come and bring their games. And honestly, it felt like an opening act. Like the
yeah,
main pull is the arcade machines because they're big, you know what an arcade machine looks like. But also over here, there's like an Xbox controller and a screen and a game you haven't seen before. And
yeah,
it really felt a lot like having an opening act. And sort of the same way this kind of goes down in music scenes as well, not infrequently those games, like 6 months later, we'd be like, well, we're gonna make a new arcade machine. Like that game ruled.
yeah,
Like let's do it.
yeah. I listen. I'll be honest. I came away from the Mitski show I saw way more like I on the ride back. I was listening to the Sydney Gish album because she was the
I
opener, and I was enamored. I was like, this is amazing. I love this.
I gotta check exactly when this was, but let's see. It must have been around 2008. I'm looking it up now, but I saw Of Montreal and Janelle Monáe was opening.
Right.
And I had never heard of Janelle Monáe because I think the Metropolis The Chase Suite had just come
Yes, I
out.
was gonna say that would be kind of probably like that Chase Suite era, which
Yep, and because I remember because I went home and I downloaded it immediately because she was so good.
yeah,
Like she was just amazing.
right. Like
Um,
it's that we experience of like imagining like coming across like someone you've never heard of, and then like yeah, geez, just because you could play through all the Chase Suite as like a single opening show,
oh yeah,
probably.
it's like two EPs.
Right.
She did. I don't even remember exactly what she. I mean, she played stuff from the Chase Suite. Obviously, I think she might have done a few covers or something.
Yeah.
But like, no, it was great. And I don't even know if I can afford Janelle Monáe tickets right now.
Yes. No. I personally do not like large show concerts.
Yeah, I mean, arena things are.
I'm a real
I don't know.
small venue kind of. Providence has a very good theater that I pretty much exclusively see shows at. So,
I
aside
mean,
from
I'm lucky here in New York. We got a lot of really killer small venues.
yeah, yes, Boston has quite a few too as well, but it's a little bit further out of my way, and
Hmm.
they're more like bars where the one in Providence is like. It's the fun thing about the Northeast is like you just get like very old classic theaters, and then someone just
Yeah,
playing a punk
totally.
show in it, while there are these like angelic frescoes above them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is it's a cool thing, and the idea of like just like more actively supporting each other.
Hmm.
I think is like super important to try to just kind of like lift other people up the best you can, and it's kind of like creates this kind of weird kind of we're all in it together sort of camaraderie. And
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And I think I was talking to someone privately about this sort of thing, and I realized where it can where it can lack in games sometimes. I think it's because of the sort of like games have an extreme like pass fail binary in terms of your success. You're like working on a game for 6 years, and then it either works or it flops, or I guess it can be
Yes.
very middle of the road as well.
Yeah, but you feel like you don't get that as
Right.
often.
Right. There's not that same like kind of like working local gigs kind of grind every now like month over month that you might get in like music.
Totally. Like I feel like Particle Maze is kind of an interesting one because I actually do sort of view that one as in just at least monetarily like kind of a middle of the road success.
Yeah.
I didn't like certainly if you figured out what my hourly is for all the time I spent on it, it's bad.
Right. You
But
can't
like
think about that.
but it made it made some money. It brought in
Right.
some money and it was enough to be like a chunk of my income for that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but I feel like that's kind of rare. Like some stuff
Yes.
blows up, most stuff just like flops hard.
Right. Until you like realize like you have connections, and like I saw someone like you can only tell how much something will flop hard by like Steam charts or whatever, like Steam reviews. That's the only like visual metric. But then I'll see something like, oh, that flopped hard, but then they're like, we're expanding because we got a publisher. And it's like, oh, I guess if you just know the right people, you can't
Yeah.
fail.
Well, and then there's also just like there's other metrics of success,
Right.
right? Like monetarily the game did fine. No complaints. I'm quite happy with it. But like the arcade machine we built did great.
Right.
Um like people love it. It's a lot of fun and like as a creator it's really fun for me and like makes me feel really good about the game that like everywhere we bring it people love it.
Yeah.
They go like wild for it. Like there's this band Inako
Oh my
literally has a
god.
song. Yeah, that song Particle Maze was like somewhat about the machine. Um
I am. If we talk about I am very staunch that that demo, that original like demo one,
mhm.
is like top albums of all time. I love it. It's so dearly. It's like
Hell yeah,
amazing.
but like that machine was living at Silent Barn.
Right.
And they were playing shows at Silent Barn. And I remember like when it first came out, because it was like the single off that album, I was like, that can't be the same. And my partner was like looking at the lyrics and being like, I think it is. Like she like messaged them on Twitter and was like, is this about the arcade machine? And they're like, yeah. Um,
What a world. What a
right. And well, and like that doesn't show up in Steam metrics.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But like, yeah, I'm really interested in sort of like cross mingling art forms more, because I'm thinking like it's easier to convince perhaps uh, art people to get into these games than it is to convince gamers to get into art games. And I don't know if that will test out to be true.
Yeah, I mean, let me know if you figure it out.
I'm trying it. I very recently my kind of like pitch to people. It's like, oh, I don't play games. I'm like, well, this is kind of just like art that happens to be a game. It's not really like video games. Except
Totally.
some, except sometimes when they are video games. But I also like video games as well.
Yeah, but the line is blurrier.
Right. It's like
I mean, no one goes around saying they don't watch movies.
exactly. That's why I was thinking about that. And I told people that I was like, like because I was like talking to someone who actually like had worked at like the Brattle, which is a local theater in Boston. It's like a local theater, and I was telling her like he's like it's just like it's like movies, but like you like weird movies. And it's kind of like games are also like that. And she's like, oh, because I hadn't really thought about it like that.
It's a medium.
Right.
And like some folks are more into this medium than others, but like it's very weird to just be like, I just don't do that one. I
Yes.
don't I
Right.
don't do paintings.
Yeah. I just don't. I choose not to view them. it's a very weird kind of in between sort of thing. But
Yeah, and partially we have ourselves to blame for that. Where gamers, like no one calls themselves filmers. Like gamers have built such a thing about it being exclusive,
yeah,
that sucks.
about how you have to you
It
gotta true
really
prove.
ruins it for everybody.
Speaking of proving your gamer cred, Andy, I gotta know, what are your feelings on Mario?
What? I mean, it's they're really good.
Ah,
Great series. I don't know.
okay, well, let me see. You passed the gamer test. Congratulations. I've had people on this show who don't even play Mario. Can
I
you
mean,
believe
that's
it?
legit. I mean, it's fine. I
The
just,
the first
in terms of
president.
just pure game design,
Yeah,
God, those games they're just consistently brilliant.
yeah. I have like soft spots for like larger games as well. Like I try not to be a tricky kind of. I've been playing The Evil Within recently,
Mm.
or the first and the second one, and there is nothing in the world to me more satisfying than that RE4. If you press the button, the door opens slowly. If you press it twice, you kick it open. It is such an intuitive piece of design, and I think about it all the time.
I
And
mean,
how,
sometimes the big ones get it right.
yeah, yeah, there's still artists making games, you know.
I mean, listen,
Uh,
a lot of times they don't, but
you're right. Yes, a lot of times they're just like very, very passable and very like you don't think about them afterwards. But it's extremely good at evoking a feeling. I think honestly, that second one is like the closest, the happiest I've felt with like survival horror as a
interesting.
genre.
It's not really a genre I mess with.
Neither do I, mainly for the reason. So if I had to talk about game designer lingo for a minute, you know how let's talk about verbs. You know, I would say the important main verb of a survival horror game should be movement. You should have a lot of movement options because in my mind, like a horror character is like really scrambly and is like has a lot of ways to escape because they're like every if you're not ahead of an encounter, you're behind it.
Sure, yeah.
And that game has a lot of like vaulting over stuff and like it's easy to run and then hide and then kind of like reset your game of cat and mouse.
Hmm.
And I think like that's a neat thing. But it's like this kind of like it feels like almost like that middle of the road game that kind of if it's a PS2 game, and I mean that in the most endearing sort of way. That kind of like that era where design felt less solidified of like there being correct choices. You know,
Totally.
now it feels like there are far too many people going towards correct choices. That's why I'll
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff that's it's a little hand-holdy and it takes like 90 minutes before I feel like I'm playing the game.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And
Frankly, I don't have that kind of time.
let me ask you a question about your deck building roguelike. Did you have your cards in the bottom left of the screen kind of fanned open?
Right, I gotta think for a second. I mean, yeah, definitely. But
Okay.
that makes sense. I mean, if you're doing a computer card game, you're putting the
Yes, yeah,
cards in the bottom of the
I know.
screen. Left
I
or
know.
right.
I know. It's just like it was very funny to see post Slay the Spire all the games who have the exact same UI as Slay the Spire.
So here's the thing. Slay the Spire seems great, but do you know the deck building roguelike that kind of got me into it and which I come back to all the time?
No, I don't know.
Is Dream Quest for the
I don't.
phone.
I have no idea what
Dream
that
Quest
is.
is brilliant, and it looks. I mean, it's like terrible MS Paint graphics, and it's not done as like a style. Like it looks so bad. If someone looks over your shoulder while you're
Yeah.
playing Dream Quest, just like total nightmare. But it's so good.
Oh yeah, this looks terrible.
It looks really bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's really good. This is to this day my go-to like deck building roguelike.
Right, but I also like I might. This is also the kind of thing that might even just like honestly win me over artistically because you can feel the human touch in it. You know.
Yes, very much so. It felt like it felt like it should have come out like 10 years earlier when you could get away with this kind of thing. where someone's like, I have an interesting design and an ability to execute good systems, and I'm just not gonna worry about
Yes.
how it looks.
These these health and mana bars are fully imported from Newgrounds circa like 2008.
Yeah, right. Um,
All this UI is extremely Newgrounds.
yeah, but play it sometime. It's great.
Yeah, inspired by Ascension. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, roguelikes, deck building, video games. They're cool. I recommend people try video games. They're an interesting thing sometimes. You you can control the little guy on the screen, and he does stuff.
Yeah,
Often,
I mean it's great.
often the thing he does is try not to die whilst killing other people. But that,
That's what games are about.
yeah, make sure your little guy doesn't die, but make sure he kills other people in the process.
The most important thing you can do.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
but anyway, games. Speaking of games, we're closing this show of games and shutting this show down. And this
yeah.
time, I will remember last week I deleted the episode. This
Oh,
time,
try not to do that.
I will not do that. Well, the problem was I ran out of space, and then I deleted my OBS MKVs, but I accidentally deleted the one that I needed.
I mean, hey, do
Yeah.
what you got to do.
Then
I want to quickly mention
yes.
that I have a thing I am working on now
Oh, that's
that is
perfect.
like,
That's
yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
I want you to talk about.
hell yeah. No, I have this project, Skirmish Society, which is currently looking for testers, actually. It is a war game in the vein of diplomacy, but it's played via Discord bot. So you install this bot on your Discord. You end up to like 20 friends. Well, I guess 19 because it's 20 total. Join the game. It creates a little map for you, and you submit orders to the Discord bot over DM, and once a day it resolves the turn.
Now, where would people be able to join this?
You can check this out at skirmishsociety.com. It is not quite done, so it's not fully released yet. However, it is in an open beta period, so it is free to try out. The bot just pops in on any server, and a game takes usually about a week. So if you're into like those kind of war games, or you've just been curious about one, yeah, check it out. I think it's pretty fun.
Perfect. You segued very naturally into what I was going to ask, which was this is plugged. Do you have anything else of where people might be able to find you generally? Where
Yeah, totally. You can find me on Twitter at Andy_makes. You can find me on itch.io at AndyMakes. Actually, you can just go to andymakes.com. You'll find all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, it's got all the links right on top of everything up there.
Hell yeah. I do a lot of smaller kind of experimental game stuff. I do this one very big games project, Skirmish Society, right now. And then I make a lot of just 2D art on a pen plotter where I have a robot draw pictures with pens that I put in it.
Yeah, there you go.
So check that out.
Doing the important work of getting your own damn website, which is I think more people should do. I think everyone should do. They're relatively inexpensive to have.
Totally. I think we should have more websites. I want fewer things that just exist on like Reddit or Twitter.
Right. We don't need to post one website to the other three websites over and over again.
I mean, listen, if you go to andymakes.com, you'll find links to the other three websites.
Sure, but you went through your website to get there.
Yeah, then I get the clicks.
Yeah. Do you have you don't have a visitor counter. Unfortunate.
Yeah, maybe I should. Although
where's your guest book?
that's just you can just email me. Let me know how my website was.
Yeah. You have an email. That's the one thing that's driven me real nuts is finding emails for people. And like when people just have I don't know if this is just a thing they're teaching in school now about making just like a contact form.
Oh God. Yeah, no, that's terrible. I mean, I have my email in my about section.
Yeah.
Oh.
But when I just see a contact form, I will usually just like never contact that person.
No, we have a system for this.
Right. It's very easy to use. Maybe that person will email me back if they do that, but I like to have it in my box going out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Uh, so, send me an email.
But anyway, speaking of emails, don't email me. But what you can do with me is buy Indiepocalypse. I'd highly encourage you to purchase Indiepocalypse. It's a good thing. If you buy issue 31, like so many people have at this point, um, Andy here will get some money eventually. He'll get like
Yeah.
$5 to $6, $7 down the road. Usually, what happens is people get paid out once I do the pledge drive, so people get a bigger payout once a year. But it's something like royalties are.
It's
They're
real. No, it's real money. And while you're there, like buy the back catalog too. There's a lot of good stuff in the older
yeah,
ones.
it is like it's I am amazed. It feels weird because I am making it, but I am also like in the process of like making when I make the zine each month. Like as I add the individual games as people submit their information, I'm like, this thing is really cool. These people are making cool games, and I wish they got more attention. I wish there was people were buying things as rapidly as they bought them on Bandcamp. I want to see that ticker go wild on itch rather than like the 3 or 4 entries I'm sure tick by every now and then on that.
Well, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, it's just time. It's just time and just time. But also indiepocalypse.com/Patreon if you want to sign up for it to get like a magazine subscription basically. And then just get them all and not worry about it. You can get even like if you want just the commissioned games, that's the only way to get them before they're released by their own developers, and that's only like $5 a month. $5 a month for a new game commissioned by like let's call them what they are. They're luminaries of the independent game space, either present or up and coming. That's a steal, honestly, and they're genre agnostic. You never know what you're gonna get. You might not even. Sometimes they're even tabletop games, not even video games. But there's that. There's if you want to submit your stuff, there's indiepocalypse.com/submit, and that's it. That's the stuff. That's the show. I want to. Hopefully, our absentee guest will appear on a future show because I did download her music to play on this show and I wanted to do that. It's cool. I had someone on recently. Sabrina was on recently, and I played her music. And I'm like, I actually don't need to edit this music out actually. And it was a cool thing that like just being playing people's music during the show and not having to edit it out. But that's it. The show's ending. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me. This was rad.
Goodbye.
All right. Bye.